So we have reached 100 episodes of that My Hero Academia greatness, and this is going to be a bit of a celebration video on top of reviewing and analyzing the content in this episode. And honestly, I have to say, it feels good to have made it to 100 episodes, and sure, maybe the past arc wasn't for everyone, and maybe there's been another arc that hasn't been for you. But I mean, if you've made it to 100 episodes of a show and only a couple dozen episodes at worst may not have been top tier for you, you're batting a pretty damn good average. For me personally, it's batted a pretty flawless average. I mean, I've loved every arc, even if certain episodes haven't hooked me in as much as others. The show, I think, is really good, and I mean, I've been watching it since season 1. Originally, when the manga started up, I checked out like the first 8 or so chapters. I was really impressed with it, thought it could become something great, and truthfully, it surpassed my expectations very early on. And to see where we're currently at, with all the main class having their hero licenses, getting a taste of what someone like Todoroki and Bakugo could do in the face of danger, and you know, with the villains heating up, I mean, we started teasing that at the beginning of this season, shit will hit the fan, and it's going to be extraordinary to see what's going to occur, especially considering some of the things that are in motion may not be able to happen. I mean, we have characters like Todoroki going to his father saying, I want to learn how to use my flames better. Will he have time to master it? Will Deku have time to master Black Whip, right? There's all these uncertainties and questions. All I can say is 100 episodes down, and however many left to go until this show wraps up, I'm here for it. This episode probably won't blow away those who weren't a fan of the past arc, but for those of us who just like the characters of My Hero Academia, I mean, this episode was once again a very comfy, fun, but also pretty exciting one. I totally wasn't expecting anything explosive to happen in this episode, given the fact that the tournament was over. I didn't feel them starting up an arc in the middle of this episode. It felt more like the calm before the storm. But to actually have the provincial exams finish and have Todoroki and Bakugo come into their car, deal with these snatchers, right? These thieves who perfectly planned something that had 2 teenagers who just got their hero license coming from school. Had that not happened, they would have had the perfect crime. They studied for, I think they said like a year, where heroes would be, where there'd be a lot of people at one time, so they could steal a shit ton of things. And honestly, it was really nice to see, because you had someone who could use water, basically, with high pressures, and you're going up against someone who can not only freeze that, can also basically vaporize it, and then you have Bakugo who can just explode you to a bloody pulp. And I like how, even though it was such a short moment, it really highlighted how far all of them have come. Todoroki, the attack he used to finish the job there, he really held himself back and showed how much restraint he now has and why he deserves that license. That he can use these extreme forces without putting other people in danger. Bakugo, as an example, I mean, this man, he made sure to save people, even though it wasn't the biggest thing ever. I mean, All Might jumping to save a woman in danger. Bakugo wasn't in his own head, in his own world, just focusing on dealing with the enemy. He understands that he has to focus on the civilians themselves. And it didn't matter if it was All Might or not, he would have done it for anyone. And that's what I really like, is that it was a nice kind of reward, I feel like. It felt more like, hey, you've been here for 100 episodes, you've seen the best and you've seen the worst out of some of these characters. And now we're going to show you that no matter what the next arc throws at us, whether certain characters don't end up making it throughout it, whether some characters have to massively change their persona, they have at the very least become heroes, and heroes are what's going to be needed for probably the chaos that's about to happen. There was a ton of funny stuff in this episode, which I really dug. I mean, Minato has been one of the horniest and probably needs the most disciplined characters out there. And honestly, I love seeing him finally get his punishment. I mean, this boy deserved what happened to him in this episode. He's a demon. He needed this to happen, and I love seeing that. Or even getting Eri in this episode, a character who I don't think we even saw a glimpse of in this season. I mean, if we did, it was a pretty minor moment. Having certain characters like the ability to copy one's quirk, it's a pretty good idea. Well, how are we going to train this girl who could actually kill herself and other people if her powers go crazy? Well, have someone copy her quirk, learn how to use it themselves, and then teach her. It's a really cool idea. And then we get not only the realization of why a character like Deku's quirk ended up being a blank for him, but also Eri, because any form of quirk that is a stockpile, you can't take it because you can't get the essence of that quirk. And I think that's really interesting. It's also quite frightening to see that had Deku's quirk been anything other than what it was, if it wasn't a stockpiling quirk, this man would have blew to pieces. And don't get me wrong, he's not my favorite character. I think he's an arrogant bastard, but I think for a character being more of that down the middle, not trying to be the good or bad guy, but just being its own little side character, Monoma, he didn't deserve to die, and I'm glad he didn't, right? So it was nice to have stuff like that, and just kind of like the build up to saying like shit will hit the fan, and it's a little frightening. And I was actually curious to see what Deku's resolve would be by the end of this episode, because while talking with Bako as well as All Might, I mean, there's a lot of fear there, because how does it work? You know, can you bring it out whenever? It feels like it's been locked away, almost like a key. You secured the lock, you toss away the key, now it's not coming out because you yourself know you'll kill yourself if you use it. Your body just isn't up to par, similar to how One For All, right, wasn't up to par when his body first began training, right? So I think there's a lot of things that are holding Deku back, especially given the fact that he's fearful of where his power came from. But by the end of the episode, you really see it's not a matter of where it came from, it's now a matter of you're using it and you're going to make it your own. And I think that's a good kind of bow to tie up this arc and hopefully lead us into something that will be truly extraordinary and really reach the peak greatness that we've seen in previous My Hero Academia seasons. I mean, I do get where some people were coming from with this past arc, but I mean, even without knowing, and I don't know really anything about the upcoming arc other than apparently it's crazy, even if I didn't know that, I mean, it's crystal clear. Like, you don't show us something that's more school-oriented for this long, showing how far they've come, really get a good understanding of where their power and skill sets are, unless shit's gonna get wild in the next arc, and you're probably gonna be wishing you saw the previous one, right? It's just a general writing formula, but My Hero Academia really made it exciting, though I could completely understand how it could be boring in the manga, like some people were saying that, you know, reading it week by week, it's different binging something, but if you're reading 20-page chapters week after week, I get how that could be boring. But for the anime with that great soundtrack, there was tons of really good animation, especially incorporating some really crazy 3D camera work, plus just having the characters really have chances to shine, showing us that even if certain characters aren't on screen, like the majority of Class B, they're still improving and they're still progressing. So rather than a world that feels empty, like unless you're focusing on Deku, unless you're focusing on Todoroki, they're not going to be growing in their own way. No, they absolutely are. But like I've always said, like, it's hard to really tell what the internet actually feels about something, because anyone who hates something will always be the loudest voice on the internet. So you could have 1,000 people saying this is the worst season of My Hero Academia, when in reality there's 20,000 people really liking the season. So it's really hard to say. But it's one of those things that I just hope that, you know, I'm not saying, oh, I hope they continue to hate My Hero Academia. No, I truly hope that the next arc will make up for any shortcomings they might have had. But I mean, for those of us who enjoyed this past arc, I mean, it's probably only going to get better. I highly doubt people who enjoyed this first half are going to say the second half is ass or anything like that. But I guess we'll see where they take it. But I mean, for me, My Hero Academia, at its very worst is good, and at its very best, it's truly exceptional, and more times than not, it's closer to that exceptional meter. Only going to get crazier, it's only going to get better, and I'm really excited to see where the characters are going to go and how they're going to struggle in the upcoming arc. But let me know your thoughts and feelings either on My Hero Academia as a whole, now that we have reached an incredible milestone, or any of your favorite moments from this episode down below. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, share, support, and hit that subscribe button if you're happy new around here. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.